Patrick Prohaska. Did you really drop a set of barbells on your face? Just let's get it out of the way because people are going to go, what happened to that guy?
Yeah, the question is what happened to me? The answer is I was overworked and I was dehydrated and I fainted
Oops.
and I fell and landed on my face and I've been recovering ever since. So, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. I feel like a raccoon. I feel like I should be climbing in a dumpster, rooting around for vegetables and stuff, but it's not quite as bad as it was before. Yeah. Got the black eyes from the internal damage in the nose. And then there's a huge gash on my nose. And it's amazing how much the nose can bleed. So I had
Oh, yeah.
the bleeding from the cut on the nose, but I also had the bleeding from inside the nose, and then all the pain associated with that, and the embarrassment of needing to go out in public and work at a local restaurant and wondering if I'm impacting people's appetite as I'm serving them. And, that's,
So when did this happen?
this happened Saturday night.
So in 5 days, how many people have said, whoa, what does the other guy look like? How many guys have said that to you?
Probably about 3 or 4 times a day.
Really?
3 or 4 times a day. Yeah, that I get a lot of that. I get a lot of one person said, "You're too old to be fighting."
Oh my God. Well, thank you.
And I said, "I'm not too old to be falling down though."
Right.
So,
Anyway. All right. So before we go into what I want to talk about, say hi to my people. Hi,
hi,
people.
everybody. Hi, tribe. It's awesome to connect with all of you.
As some of you who watch the channel regularly and go way back, my buddy Patrick has been on a few times. I think twice. Was it twice?
Twice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So that's been interesting. But tell everybody who you are because you got to update everybody because most people are not going to know.
Yeah, so I am an energy coach. So what I do is I work with people in order to clear away the subconscious blockages and the belief systems and all of the bogus expectations and bogus limitations that prevent them from moving forward with their life and achieving what they want to achieve. So I have a coaching practice that also doubles as a healing practice. The healing isn't simply me waving a magic wand and making your pain go away and then you give me money as a result of that.
Right.
The healing practice involves us working together to identify what your limitations are, what your limiting beliefs are, your limiting habits and patterns are, so that you can choose a different action and get a different outcome for yourself in the future. So I know partially what we're going to be talking about today. There are a lot of groups out there and a lot of healers, so called healers out there, who basically say, you pay me $250, I'll wave my magic wand, and your pain will go away. And then a week later, your pain comes back. So you have to pay me another $250. And then it's lifelong maintenance from then on out.
Or you pay 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 to go to
Hmm.
conferences. And part of
Or
what we're going
more.
to talk about is what I've done and what the
Yeah.
result was. Anyway, you're also do something else. You're an author.
Well, I'm an author. I'm a life coach, a integration coach. So I help people who have done ayahuasca ceremonies or other types of plant medicine ceremonies. I help them integrate the experience after they're finished with it. And I developed a system of energy work called Light Bridge that we don't need to go into too much detail about. It's pretty complicated, but it has been pretty successful for me over the past few years. So I think and I know from experience that energy work and meditation and turning inward, that it works, that there are experiences that you've had that have been absolutely profound, out of body experiences,
Right.
energetic touch experiences with healers that I know that you've worked with or body workers and so forth. And so You know it works. I know it works. I think what we're talking about today is the people that overpromise and underdeliver. And they take that to the extreme. They demand everything from you, including your loyalty and all your money, and really give nothing in return once you're hooked in.
Right.
So I find that kind of offensive and
Yeah.
problematic. Yeah.
So, well, I've known Patrick. How long have I known you? Since I moved to
Gosh,
Palm
at least
Springs.
10 years.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Well, maybe 8, because that's how long I've been in Palm Springs. Yeah.
Okay, 8 years
Yeah,
then.
we're going on 9. Going, yeah, we'll average it. Yeah, about 9. So yeah, Patrick used to live in Palm Springs, and then he moved to Kansas City, and now he's in Colorado Springs. So,
Colorado Springs, yes.
and then he's going to come back to Palm Springs someday. All right, so we're going to tell what this is all about. So I'll tell a little about me. Most of my listeners know, but I'm going to do a synopsis here. So I was married in my former life. I was in ministry in a church, one of the ministers in a church in Seattle, a big one, and I have 3 sons. And I grew up in evangelical Christianity. So basically, when I got divorced and then eventually came out, actually at the point of separation, not even the divorce, separation, 6 months later, divorce, 8 months later, came out, figured it out. I was very involved in this large church in Seattle. And basically, as soon as my ex wife and I were separated, I got the cold shoulder. So I haven't really been in the church stuff for 26, 27 years now, because that was 99. And and it happened right before that. So my journey has been the energetic realm, and Mark Hollenstein is my energy guy here in Palm Springs, and you know Mark. So basically, I've had to deprogram myself from all the stuff that was imprinted in me since I arrived in my birth family, because my parents, well, my mother used to be an underwear model in New York before she met my father, and then she became a radio preacher. So she was the boss of the family and ran the show. But anyway, so I met Mark, and I was on his table every week except for vacations for about 7 years. And a lot of energetic stuff happens. I've always been a searcher. Even back in the church days, I did a recent podcast with Mark. I call it my second coming out, because I have family members that are on a whole different place that I'm at, the religious stuff, and it hasn't been real pleasant in a lot of ways with all of that. But I've walked away from all that, and I look at things a whole lot different. But I've always been a seeker. So when I was in the church, for example, I don't know if you knew this, but one day I'm sitting in the middle of everything, and I'm one of the ministers of the church and stuff, and I said to myself, I want to know what's true, and I don't care if it's not all this. So it's always the journey, expanding, growing, blah blah blah. So in light of that, I started watching a bunch of podcasts. One of the podcasters that I was following was a guy named Danny Morel, and he does Awaken conferences around the country. And he goes with his team and people that are lucky enough to pay him a lot of money every year. They go and do plant ceremonies and stuff like that, which of course you can't do in the US most of the time. So I decided to go to one of his conferences. I went to Austin, Texas was the first one. I actually signed up to come to Denver, you know that one. And then they canceled the conference. So we switched around, and I picked up one in Anaheim after that. But I went to Austin, and then a few months later, 3 or 4 months later, I went to Anaheim. So I've been in that world for 2 conferences, 3 days each. First of all, when you're in a conference with 500 or 600 people, there's an energy there. And a lot of those people are seekers, and they've done a lot of work, like me. I mean, I did the work for almost 8 years. And when you're doing breath work, for example, things are going to happen just because you have that many people doing the breath work in that room. Unfortunately, Danny, it appeared to me, seemed to take credit for everything that was happening. And to me, it was just something that evolved and happened. Everybody just went with the flow. Now, obviously, he provided a container for that in the conferences, so that was good. And you met a lot of great people, very interesting people. But things started to happen. I'm going, hmm. I went to that conference. I think it was in the summer of 25. In the spring of 25, I had a hernia operation in a hospital close to Palm Springs, and I was sexually assaulted by a female staff member when I was half drugged. And I I had told the surgeon before that I'm gay and that I was sexually abused when I was young and that I did not want any females touching me or looking at me. And it was just a disaster that went on forever. But anyway, on the heels of that happening to me in March, then I go to the conference. I also found out I've had cancer since 2017 is when I got the diagnosis, but I went naturopathic for almost 8 years. And then for some reason, it just went crazy and it started spreading. And then, so the last year, I've been dealing with that. And that's one reason why this podcast is delayed because I had to deal with all of the cancer stuff. I'm in remission now under hormone treatment, which is horrible, but I'm alive and I'm in remission. So that's the good news. But anyway, I arrived there and at the first conference in an extremely vulnerable state, as you can imagine. So Danny hired a company to come in and they did a biofield study. So basically, you go in. I wasn't a part of it originally, but they need more volunteers, and I volunteered. So what they did is they did first one, and after the conference, they did another biofield study where you stick your fingers in a machine and it reads everything, all your internal
So
organs.
is that like aura photography or aura reading, or
Now you stick
is
your
some
fingers
sort
in
of
it. It just
device that
it can tell all of the stuff in your body. I'm not a technician. I don't know how it works. All I can tell you
okay.
is they showed me a thing where it was really like I told her I had prostate cancer. So she looked at that organ and it was like always sharp edges on it. And then at the end of the conference, she showed me something that said I was normal, that there wasn't cancer. So of course I was hyped up about that. About a week or 2 weeks later, I went in and had a full body scan, and not only was the cancer still present, but it was spreading. So that was totally fake. It got my hopes up, but it didn't happen. So, anyways, that was
Now, question about that. Did you, before she took the image and saw that there was, I don't know, chaotic energy around the prostate, did you tell her that you had prostate cancer before that, or was it completely blind?
no, it was blind. She did
Hmm.
that, and that's the mystery to me is if it was legit, why did it show that? I have no idea. You know what I mean? So, but I was, like I said, I'm in a very vulnerable state and I'm open because I don't want to die, basically. I mean, pretty
Hmm.
simple. I had written a letter to Danny and I sent you the letter. So you've seen it, but so you can pull stuff out of that or I could go, whatever. What do you think?
So, my interpretation, just as an outsider, based on what
Right.
you've told me here and previously, is that there's certain organizations that prey on the vulnerable. And a lot of times, the vulnerable people are self selected. You don't go to that type of conference if you're not vulnerable in some way, if you're not searching for an answer, or if you're not searching for healing in some way. So they know automatically that you have a very high probability of being in search of answers or in search of healing. And then statistically, they might look at you as a man of a certain age and know that men in your age bracket typically have prostate problems. And therefore, they set it up so that the image shows that there's chaotic energy in that area. So it seems like they could just be playing the numbers and trying to exploit vulnerability. They know that men of a certain age have this certain vulnerability, so that's what they show you that you have. Even if you know that you don't have prostate cancer, even if you know that you have no problems at all down there, you being somebody in that age bracket have gotten the message over and over again, this is something you have to watch out for.
Right.
So it could be that for all the men in your age group, they all got the same reading that said that there was chaotic energy in the prostate area.
I wouldn't say it was intentional like that. And I really don't
Hmm.
know that they were that advanced or smart enough to do that.
Hmm.
It's a mystery to me. Who knows? There's a lot of stuff I
Hmm.
don't know. But
Yeah.
just overall, it just kept going on and on. Do you want me to kind of hit some of the highlights or
Yeah, please.
while we're on medical stuff, the other thing that really bugged me is multiple times during the two conferences, Danny stood up on stage and told five or 600 people that you don't need any prescription medicines. So basically, he's giving medical advice.
Mhm.
By saying, now, of course, he did a disclaimer. You would say, but I'm not telling you not to take your medicine. Then he would go right back to, but nobody needs to be on, so he's kind of like covering his ass, but he's still telling people the same thing. And he's giving them unwarranted medical advice that he should not be giving. People do take too many medicine. I get that. But there are people that have to have it to live. You know what I mean?
Yes, you're right about that. There are people who need to have certain medications in order to deal with issues that they have at the moment, but also it's possible that there might be people who are on medications that they don't need at all, but coming off that medication might be dangerous because their body's used to it.
Right.
So it could be that somebody's on a benzo, for example, and they don't really need the benzo. They'd be perfectly fine without it. But to quit cold turkey can cause seizures. So it's a dangerous game to play to tell people that they don't need to be on their medication because they might begin to self-medicate or go cold turkey off the medicine, and that would create worse problems. It's even
I'm on blood thinners because I was in a bad car wreck years ago, and I've had blood clots twice, so I have to be on it. So
yeah.
I don't know what would happen. Well, I kind of do know when it would happen because it happened a second time. Because I went on a diet. I was on warfarin, which is basically rat poison, but that's the
Mhm.
blood thinner everybody used before they used the more advanced ones. But yeah, so I broke up with a partner and I went on a diet and I was eating very well, including lots of green vegetables, which has a lot of vitamin K, which wipes out the warfarin. And I had another blood clot. Boom. So, but the doctors say I need to be on that because I am prone to blood clots. So people with major heart problems, people have had transplants. I mean, think about it, diabetic. So he's telling everybody no one needs to be on any medications. Very dangerous. So anyway, that was one of the red flags.
Mhm.
His ego really bothered me. And let me just say this: Danny is a charming guy. Most people in this position, if they are taking advantage of anyone, I mean, they're all charming. They've got good personalities. They're funny. They've got a hot wife. They're in reasonably good shape. I mean, they're up there, and it's like, do you want to be me? Okay, this is what you need to do. Pay me for this, and I'll show you how to do it. But he is a charming guy, and I don't know how deep he's gotten into all of this, or even if he realizes what he's doing. To be honest, I don't know. But I've watched a lot of his podcast stuff before I went to the conferences, and he used to be in real estate. He sold a big real estate company, kind of like a salesman. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'm not denigrating all salesmen because I was in sales, real estate for over 3 decades in Seattle. And now the hot thing is healing stuff and energy stuff and life coaches and all that. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of people do now to make a bunch of money. I don't know. But Danny, I think he's been drinking too much of his own Kool-Aid as far as I'm concerned. That's what I
Yeah.
see. I mean, he really, I think, believes and he is doing good. I'm not saying that. There is some good in it because, as I said earlier, people come with their energetic backgrounds or their work they've done and they're prepped for it. And so stuff happens. And he does provide the container to do that. And he helps you go along. But don't take credit for all of the work that five or 600 people have done over a period of many, many years. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, the opinion that I have as somebody who is actually in this industry, I look around and I see a lot of people who do basically the same type of work as I do, but they are 1,000 times more successful than I am.
right, right,
And I could come to the conclusion that that means that I'm really bad at what I do.
right.
But the honest truth is, there are certain marketing techniques that I absolutely refuse to engage in, and that tends to hold me back. I absolutely refuse to tell people that my system is the one and only system that works. And if you choose to do anything else, you're choosing to suffer. I've heard that a lot from other people who do what I do, and that if you don't follow me and my path and become part of my inner circle and actually pay a huge sum of money to get as close to me as possible, not only will you suffer, but it's your choice. You are choosing to suffer by not working with me. And that's the type of thing that I refuse to do. I've heard one woman who's kind of a cult leader talk about how she helped somebody regrow a severed limb and say
Wow.
that no, that did not happen. You did not help somebody regrow a severed limb, but it's part of her marketing package. It's what she says literally happened when somebody worked with her. And then if somebody comes to her for miraculous healing like that, and they don't get the results that she was promising, there are all sorts of mechanisms in place to blame the person who didn't get the results. You know, you didn't try hard enough, you didn't pay enough, you didn't believe enough, you didn't have enough faith. Yeah, that sort of thing. So it's your fault you didn't get, yeah. Third thing that I refuse to do that others do that works just like it's this is the sauce for a lot of cult leaders and a lot of energy workers who want to have big followings. It is flattery, telling people that they are one of the chosen ones, that they are one of the special ones, that they are part of a special group of people that are superior to others, and
Mm,
you should work with me in order to really tap into your specialness.
right.
People are desperate to hear that. And over the years, I've had a lot of people send me email messages or call me up, and they're begging me to tell them how special they are. You know, they'll tell me stories like, I was born with a caul, and what does that mean? Or I've got this mark on my palm. Tell me what that means. Or I'm RH negative. Tell me what that means, and so forth. And usually, what I'll say is, yes, I agree with you. You are special. You are probably more special than you've ever given yourself credit for, and so is everybody else. You're not
Right.
superior. You're special. Everybody's special, and a lot of times people just aren't interested in working with me because I
Right.
won't flatter them.
Right.
I'll say, you have to do work. You have to take control of your thoughts and your beliefs and your judgments and emotions and so forth.
Right.
It's not that you are a very, very special being that others are jealous of, and therefore others are putting curses on you. And I'm going to remove those curses so your specialness can shine.
Right.
I don't work in that way. And
Right.
so I lose out on a lot of clients that other people pick up very easily. But I don't want to work with those people. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. The first thing you said, I think it was the first thing, where you talking about, you just don't have the heart to do what some of these people do. Because at one of the conferences, I was talking to somebody that I knew that did energy and coaching for 30 years. And the person told me that over that 30 years, they probably paid a total of about $100,000 to
Mhm.
different coaches to learn how to be in the top echelon of the leaders and people raking in all the money, teaching you how to do that. They said that they didn't have the heart to do that. And then further, they said, but Danny's following it to a T. It's like, it's
Mhm.
exactly what they paid all that money for all those years to figure out how to do it with people and be successful. He said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in
Mhm.
good conscience. But he said, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I went to I guess, a conference, you could say. It was
Right.
more of a sales thing, but it was set
Right.
up as a conference, but it
Right.
was like a 3-day sales pitch to join somebody's inner circle at $20,000 for a 6-month commitment. And she had a keynote speaker come on who basically was bragging about how he had scammed his way into becoming a billionaire. And the whole
Whoa.
attitude was he was successful at becoming a billionaire, even though he scammed his way the entire way. The fact that he became a billionaire meant that God approved and that God
Oh,
wanted him to be a billionaire because he succeeded. So that part of it turned me off quite a bit. But then at the end of the conference, there was a Q&A session, and a woman raised her hand to ask a very heartfelt question about a conflict that was going on within her family that was really kind of eating her alive. And the woman, Shanda, I won't say her last name, but people might be able to figure it out based on that, basically said, "Did you join my $20,000 program? If you didn't join my $20,000 program, you have chosen to suffer, and I'm not going to answer your question."
Really?
Yeah, extremely rude. But it was like super manipulative, and it was all based on, if you don't turn your life over to me, then any suffering that you have from now on and the rest of your life is your fault.
I'm actually embarrassed for him thinking about it. But one of the rather humorous things. So, in the middle of the Austin conference, Danny stood up there and then he kind of feigned, should I tell him or not? You know, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Then he said, okay, I'll tell you. And I'm not quoting exactly, of course, but modesty. And then I'm one of the few enlightened beings on the planet right now. He
Mhm.
actually said that, which I was thinking back to some of the podcasts I listened to where he said he wanted to be a billionaire. Very interesting. I don't know any enlightened beings I've ever heard of. I don't know any personally, but I don't know of any that I'm aware of that would say they're an enlightened being. I've never heard of anybody saying that.
Know that old saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. That is, if you encounter anybody who says that they are the Buddha or they're enlightened, then
Wow.
obviously they're not, because no enlightened being would ever say that.
Right.
So avoid them at all costs.
Right. Well, it was really interesting because the universe, I think, was doing a let's see about that enlightened thing. Because after the conferences, there's like group calls and stuff that you can attend on a Zoom. And somehow Danny's staff screwed up, and there was like 300 people at the Zoom call. And I think there was about 1,000 people waiting. They couldn't get into it because somebody on his staff screwed up and set a limit of 300 a Zoom call. And obviously he wanted everybody in there, but he came unglued with his staff. You could
Yeah.
see it, and we had to end the call because he had to go take a walk. That's not an enlightened being.
Yeah, there was somebody that I worked with for a while who would always say things like there are no coincidences, or everything happens for a reason, or you go with the flow because there's meaning behind everything. And he was selling a course for $350, and somebody signed up for his course, and then they changed their mind and asked for their $350 back before the course began. And the temper tantrum eruption that ensued because somebody had asked for a refund
Right.
was, I mean, it was earth-shattering, and I was thinking, well, don't you believe that things happen for a reason, so let it go?
But not those things. The other interesting thing is Danny repeatedly put down religious stuff. He had kind of a bad experience because mother died of cancer and he wasn't very fond of God at that point and stuff like that. But he's like, you don't need a savior. I mean, he kept saying stuff like that. But his words and his behavior and what he did during the conferences was just astounding to me. Basically, it's what you referred to a few minutes ago. It was like, but I am your savior. I mean, he's saying things like, this is the best thing in the history of the world, is the way I recall it. He said stuff like that. Tent preacher would say, come to the altar and find Jesus, right?
Mhm.
No, but Danny would say, go to the back table and see his wife, Jen, and pay me thousands of dollars. This one really got me. One of the conferences, it was really weird. It come from the evangelical Christian kind of
Yeah.
weirdos, some of the weirdo stuff. And so he said to the 500 or 600 people, stand up, say blah, 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 sit down. Stand up, say blah, 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 sit down. It was just totally bizarre to me. Yeah. And then I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was just so kind of mega church preacher stuff to me that I was picking up over these two conferences, talking
Yeah.
about his $150,000 lease on his vehicles and while he's building his dream house. Meanwhile, he's renting a house for $20,000 a month. What's next? A private jet or what? I mean, we're going to get in
Mhm.
the flow of the mega church pastor, right?
Yeah.
And then the other Another thing he did was, this really disturbed me. There was an Asian woman sitting toward the back of the conference, and he picked her out, and she was kind of a timid soul. And he went back to her, and he was, without her permission, she didn't give him permission to do any of this. And so he's demanding that she say the F word. Well, but he said, say, ah, and she'd say it louder, say it till she's screaming. Why was he doing that? I mean, I saw something similar to that, and it was used in an ad, basically. So I'm not saying he did it, but I'm guessing there's a good chance that he probably used that, because it was all being videotaped, that he used that later on. You know what I mean? Getting back to my point, it was just like an exorcism of a pastor, again, with a person, getting the devil out of him or the demon out of him, or that. I mean, that's what it looked like to me. It was just weird. So I don't know. Just to explain, I'm in this vulnerable state. So Danny stood up there, and he said, because it's always pitching, go join the collective, this special group. So he stood up there and he said, normal price is $6,000, but if you go back there today, you can get it for $29.97. So then you go back to the table if you want to do it, which I went back, and $29.97 gives you 6 months, not 1 year. I mean, 6,000 for a year, it's 3,000 would be a value of 6 months. Oh wow, we're saving $3 if we sign up today. That basically, people were rude on the staff there talking about it. It's just, well, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. But anyway, so if you want a year, it's $39.97. So this is a classic bait and switch scheme, basically, is what it is. Now, I signed up and paid the $39.97. It was, to me, cultish, because it's like you're part of this group and you want to be part of it. So then I wrote to one of his concierge ladies, I think her name was Gigi, on the site, and I said, this is wrong. This needs to be addressed, because I looked it up and it's illegal in both Texas and California to say this and then switch to something else. It's illegal. Well, I'll let the team know. So I go to Anaheim, because I went to Anaheim on the second conference because Denver had been canceled, and I switched the attendance to that conference. That's why I went to the second one, because I was going for free, because I already paid for Denver early.
Yeah. Question on that. Do you know if they offered refunds, or did they only offer transferring to a different conference?
No, they offered a refund when they canceled Denver. Yeah, as far as I know, as far as I remember. But then so I'm waiting at the Anaheim conference to see how this is addressed, because of course they're all the same, and it comes up again. So this time he stood up there and he said the normal price is $7,000. So he just like tacked another 1,000 onto it out of thin air. I would like to see or know how many people actually ever paid 6,000 or 7,000 in a few week period between the conferences. It went up. So how did that make it the regular price? You just pick it out of thin air and, oh, this is the new price. But then they did the same deal, $29.97. If you do it today, you go back, it's $39.97 if you want the full year. And by the way, when you do join on your account, it shows you'll get the same $39.97 special deal, quote unquote, in future years. But the normal price is $6,000. It said right on the site that it's $6,000 is the normal 1 year price. This whole money thing it got insane. There was one morning where the whole group, he got us to an emotional, vulnerable, open space. And then it was go back to the table and sign up, pushing everybody to go back there and sign up while they're in that state. There was one guy that was, because there would, throughout the conference, people would tell what was happening, and he'd tell about his experience and da-da-da. And Danny basically harassed the guy till he went back on the spot at the table and signed up. And here the guy is in this very open, emotional, vulnerable state, and he just makes it into that. So it was, to me, it's all about the money. So yeah, the guy finally relented, and he did go back and pay the money, but geez. So when I switched to the conference, they upgraded me. So I was a diamond guy, which means that's the highest thing you can pay for. Basically, it was the same as the other conference, except it included a dinner with Danny and his wife, up to 20 people, right? I never would have paid for it to go to it, but it was included. So I went. We go to this diamond dinner, and then I found out the people at that table, other than me, who got it for free as part of my upgrade for all of the inconvenience. And by the way, I lost a shitload of money in that Denver conference. I had booked
Yeah.
everything and I couldn't get out of the flight or anything. So I went for a week. So they had paid $1,500 each for this dinner for the privilege of being with him and his wife. And it included a follow-up session when the conference was finished. So on the table for our menu, there's a thing I saw, and it showed the price of that meal for each person was $130. And yet these people had paid $1,500 for it. One of the ladies there was a Latina lady that she was a house cleaner, I think, and she was like a coach for some kids team. So she had borrowed the money from her mother to go. It's sad. Then we go to the integration section, which is supposed to, well, the word integration, basically the people at the dinner went to this room after this conference was over, and he asked us what we thought about it, blah, blah, blah. There was no integration at all. Then the same lady that had borrowed the money, he's talking to her, and he puts her hands in his hands, and he looks in her in the eyes, and he goes, "I just want the best for you," and da da da, and the whole spiel. And you need to come back and bring your family to this, which is always the whole pitch was bring your family, bring your friends, da da da, kind of a pyramid type of thing, right? The whole thing was pathetic. My bottom line here is like vulnerable people are going here, and basically not good stuff is happening. So I
Yeah.
don't know. What do you think? What do you think of all this?
Well, it raises a lot of questions about cults in general. And I'm not saying that this is a cult, but it is
Right.
my opinion it has cult-like characteristics because it does have the charismatic leader who is rather thin-skinned, and it does a lot of the techniques that are really common among cults to draw people in. One of the things that cults do to draw people in is with new initiates and so forth, they do what's called love bombing. They kind of smother you with love and praise and flattery and let you know how special you are and how important you are to them. But then once you're hooked in, they don't really pay attention to you anymore because they're focused on the new people that they
Right.
want to bring in. And then once you're in the group, once you're in the cult, you have paid so much money, or you have cut ties with family members, or you have become invested in some way that what's it called? The sunk cost fallacy begins to sink in. And that is, well, I want to leave this group, it doesn't feel right to me, but I've invested so much already. I don't want to lose my investment, so I'll stay.
Right. Right.
And then people just end up staying, even though they're not getting the needs met anymore that drew them in the first place. They're not getting the love bombing. They're not getting the special attention and the flattery and so forth. They stick around anyway because they've made an investment. And leaving the group might actually be extremely embarrassing because then they have to admit to others that they fell under the influence of a cult. That sort of thing is really embarrassing. They have to make amends with the family members that they cut off ties with and so forth. Did there seem to be any of that dimension of cult-like behavior happening where there was a call for you to cut off ties with non-believers or people who weren't interested in following you into the group?
No, I can't say that
Okay.
specifically happened or that I observed that. However,
Yeah.
when you're in it, you're doing all this stuff, and he's got all these programs, and
Mhm.
you do get attached to the other people in the group. So
Mhm.
he didn't have to say that because you're putting all this time, energy, and money into this. The other things are going to fall away naturally. But he never said, "Don't talk to your mother" or anything like that. No.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, were there like philosophical discussions or were there discussions about metaphysics and so forth where you might have a difference of opinion or you might be engaging in critical thinking? Did they try to shut down the critical thinking and say, no, you just have to believe what we were telling you? Don't think for yourself. Let us do the thinking for you.
Well, just the
Um,
whole process does that without them saying. They didn't say that, but that's what happens. There was no discourse or argument or have you thought of this? None of that was going
yeah.
on.
There's another organization that I'm thinking of, and people will probably recognize this phrase and they'll know exactly what group I'm talking about, but I'm not going to name them. But once you're in the group, if you begin to ask philosophical questions that the cult leader doesn't want to answer, that might sound like they're challenging the worldview of the group, what they tell you is thinking is stinking. Thinking is stinking. Don't think, just believe. It's so funny because they start off luring you in by telling you that you should trust your intuition, and your intuition is telling you that you should be part of us,
Right.
and that you should liberate yourself from all of the programming that you've gotten from other people and become a free thinker. And so you enter the group as a free thinker, but then once you're in the group, you're told that you're not supposed to think at all. You're supposed to just believe what they tell you. Um, and
I think
that's
that's kind
yeah,
of an assumption because you're just going along with the group. I mean, you're in the river and the river's moving, and here we go. You know what I
yeah.
mean? But
Mhm,
I will say as an aside, so there was the collective thing which we discussed, but he's got a thing called the inner circle, which I don't know what they get. I think they get a couple one-on-ones with them a few times a year, and they get to go on trips like to ayahuasca or whatever at different countries. But of course,
mhm.
none of that is included in it. You have to pay for all of that separately. But just to be in the inner circle is $40,000 a year.
Yeah, people with their egos, they wanna be in the inner circle,
Right. Well, I paid
and
all this, so it gives them self worth by doing that.
you touched upon ayahuasca, and I've done lots of ayahuasca in my life. I've
Right.
done well over 70 ceremonies. I have connected with different facilitators who I trust, and they do not seem to be the type of people that are exploiting for profit
Right.
the indigenous traditions of natives from South America. But I do know, just from what I've seen, that Danny has had at one point fallen in with a group that literally was exploiting for profit the wisdom of indigenous people in Peru and Colombia.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember all the details, but he was promoting this one group and said, I trust them. You can trust me because I trust them. And then later
Hmm.
on, he said, here's another group. And he replaced it, but because he didn't like what they were doing. But how could you recommend if this is really, you should have known that before you recommend it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
weird thing is if you go on the Better Business Bureau website and look him up, there's some stuff in there that's not very good. And they're
Hmm.
not very kind and they're and you don't get your money back basically. But and the other weird thing is on his website and on the Better Business Bureau, there's an address. So I sent Danny a letter talking about all this stuff, a certified letter, and it came back. There was no such person at that address. So then I tried getting a hold of him through the website. And it's like, I want to send Danny something. I did say it was a letter. I said, I want to send Danny. We can't give out his personal address. Well, I don't want his personal address. I just want an address to send something to him, the office address. Well, we don't really have an office. So it's kind of weird. So then finally, I go on to the customer service thing on the site. I took the letter, I put it in a PDF, and I sent it to them. And I said, give this to Danny. And I talk about a lot of this stuff. It was a Wednesday. And I said, keep in mind that they don't get money back. So I sent them the letter and I outlined in detail even more than what we've talked about here.
Hmm.
And I said, I want to hear from you by Friday, or I'm going to contact various agencies like the Attorney General's bait and switch, stuff like that. Well, on
Hmm.
Wednesday, I got an email from his, I don't know, somebody that I don't know the name and I don't recognize the position, but they're like the staff person there in charge of whatever's going on wherever they are, and is saying we're giving you all your money back.
Mm.
And
Well,
so
that's
I
good.
got my
Good.
money back. But as far as I'm concerned, some of the stuff that he did to me personally, I'm kind of surprised they didn't offer me something to settle all that because I'm really not sure where I'm at today. because I am concerned about other people getting scammed and caught in this web. And I don't know. It's just it's not good stuff. There's a point where he's trying to help women who have been abused, and he does this exercise where the men come in and bow down to the women. The women have their eyes closed. What would this be like to a guy who's been sexually abused, making him bow down to a woman? But
It
that was my
also kind
experience.
of sounds heterosexist too. Heteronormative, I should say.
I think it did help the women, some of them. I saw that. But also, it's like at what cost to the men that had been in
Yeah.
the position. And it wasn't even given a thought. I'm talking about when you're talking about the cult thing. I am kind of embarrassed because I was like promoting all this stuff for months, but things were happening. I mean, I did have great breathwork sessions, but again, it's the energy of the people there doing that, my experience, their experience, stuff like that, that brought up that point. But, I don't know. Danny loves to pat himself on the back. But, anyways, I don't know. Any final thoughts?
Well, sometimes you can find yourself falling into a cult-like group and not realize it until it's too late.
Right.
Not realize it until you have invested so much energy and money and time that it becomes difficult to pull out. The characteristics of a cult-like group that people should watch out for is the the charismatic leader on the surface at first will seem like somebody who genuinely cares for you as an individual,
Right.
even though you're one of maybe 1,000 people that are in front of them. They have this gift of making you feel like you're the center of attention for at least a moment.
Did
Yeah.
that with me on the second conference because
Yeah.
he knew the cancer story and stuff like that. But I hadn't found out at that point that I was still there, it was spreading, but it made me stand out.
Um,
And I fell for it, basically. I fell for it.
Yeah, but I would say watch for the warning signs early.
For me, I'm looking back and everything I've said here, like I knew the red flags and I should have known better, but being part of this thing and being hopeful, having hope kind of overrode all that. So
Yeah.
it was overriding my inner knowing. And that's
Mhm.
the bad part. I've talked to other people that have paid the upped price to be on the collective, and they told me that when they go back there and find out what's going on, they know it's wrong, and yet they do it. It's
Mhm.
so weird. It's so weird. So
I'd say one of the big warning signs to watch out for is anytime there's a message that our way is the only way.
yeah,
The thing is, nobody has a monopoly on truth. And for somebody to say that we have the full truth about something, and that if you listen to anybody else, you're listening to something that's either inferior or an absolute lie. You have to listen to us. That's a major red flag. Back when I got my Reiki certification, I studied Reiki with an organization that referred to every other school of Reiki that existed as fakey Reiki, and
oh
that
wow,
we are the one and only true transmission of Reiki. We are the one and only organization that can transmit pure Reiki, and everything else is inferior and fake. And I left that organization before finishing my certification because that was a massive red flag. Nobody has a monopoly on truth. And for somebody to say that they alone are the way is, I don't know, it's kind of offensive to me. It really rubs me the wrong way. Also, on a related note, when you have that charismatic spiritual leader, somebody who's very attractive, very well spoken, very magnetic,
right?
and you just the first time you see a video with Aubrey Marcus, or there are any number of people I can name, you're kind of struck by how attractive they are, and you want to listen to more, and you get kind of lured in. And Danny does that really weird thing with his voice where he speaks in a really soft way that is kind of meant to soothe you into a submission. It's a well-trained voice practice that he does, because I'm sure he doesn't speak that way in real life. But I think the point that I was trying to making was that the attitude of that spiritual leader is that they are somehow special, and they are enlightened, and they are the light and the way for you. And that if you choose not to work with them, all of your suffering is your fault from that point on. There's a certain amount of extortion, emotional extortion, that's built into that. That if you don't sign up with me today, you will suffer. That's a threat, and your suffering will be your fault. Blame game there.
The pastor thing I was talking about, tent preacher, it's like, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah,
just it's
yeah.
just using different language. You know what I mean? Yeah. People must be hungry though, because there's a lot of people out there making shitloads of money,
Mhm.
giving people
Yeah,
hope.
there's a lot of money to be made. There are a lot of vulnerable people who are in pain. It's an epidemic. There are a lot of people who carry tremendous pain with them, and they're looking for solutions. They're looking for answers. We live in a world that is fairly cold, and people are lacking the support systems they need in order to really stand on their own 2 feet.
Right.
So they often become trained into believing that they need to rely on somebody else or have some support system that is exterior to them in order to recover. And maybe that's true in some cases. Maybe when you have a crisis, or you go into a panic attack, or some really major stressful thing happens in your life that causes you to burn out, in those moments, you need a support system in place to lift you up. But then that person comes along who says, I'm the only person who can do it. I'm the only person who can lift you up. Then you get stuck in that. It's really sad. And like I said before, I could be much, much, much more successful than I am right now if I would
Right.
only play those games. But I feel like it's, I don't know, a violation of integrity or something to do the manipulative marketing. I don't do pain point marketing. I don't do what we're trained to do in the coaching academy that I went to. You're supposed to stimulate the pain points and make people feel worse, and then offer them the solution to their pain. So that's called pain point marketing. I don't do that.
They actually teach you that?
Yeah, they teach pain point marketing. They taught in the coaching academy that I went to, they taught pain point marketing, and they also taught that the dirty little secret of the coaching and healing industry is that the very best client that you have is the chronic relapser, the one who you can fluff up in the moment and make them feel really, really good. But then in a week or so, they begin to feel bad again, so that they have to come back to you again for a repeat session. I'm happy when people don't come to me again because they don't need me anymore. I think that's an awesome thing. So, yeah.
If you were in my town, I would invite you over for dinner as a thank you for being on here with me. So you need to come to Palm Springs. I love having dinner with you. We've done it many times when you live here.
Hmm.
Love hanging with you. So, all right, have a great day, and we will talk soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye bye.